Hey, my name's Anna and I like to read, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the books I read in January, February, and March. So the first book that I read in January was Greenhorn, and this is a children's picture book, and it's about a young Holocaust survivor named Daniel who comes to a yeshiva in Brooklyn in the 1940s. And while I thought that this book had an important message and was beautifully illustrated, I felt like it ended abruptly and the story could have been better fleshed out. The next book I read in January is The X Talk, and this is about Shay Goldstein, who has worked for the radio for almost a decade, and she really doesn't like her new colleague Dominic Yoon, and he has just finished graduate school and has a master's in journalism, and he thinks he knows everything about journalism and radio, and that annoys her. So they don't really like each other, and then they find out that their station is actually struggling, so she comes up with this idea for a radio show which is called The X Talk, and where they're going to pretend to be exes and they're going to give relationship advice. And so while I liked that the main character was Jewish and Dominic was Korean and that their cultures were relevant and intertwined with the story, I also liked that the main character was messy and had to figure out her life as well. I also liked that this was a sex positive book, and I liked how it explored grief and mourning. I also liked how it portrayed sexism in the workplace and how it handled that. However, I felt like this was an instant love story and I really didn't like that. The next book I read was How to Be Ace, and this is a graphic memoir, and it's about Rebecca and how they discover their asexuality and how they navigate their relationships from childhood to adulthood. And I really love this. I loved the art style. I thought it was well done. I really loved how they talk about asexuality and discovering it, and I wish I had this book when I was younger, so I highly recommend reading this graphic memoir. And the next book I read in January was There'll Be Peace When You Are Done, and this is a collection of essays by supernatural actors and fans of the show, and they share what the show has meant to them and how it has helped them and how it has affected them over the past 15 years. And I really like this. I found it relatable, and I also enjoyed the audiobook. I thought the audiobook was well narrated. So that was it for the books that I read in January. So now I'm going to talk about the books I read in February. So the first book that I read in February was Balio Aero, and this is about Cece and her girlfriend Sylvie, who are both social media influencers, but Sylvie breaks up with her and Cece is devastated, but then she meets a new boy in town named Josh, and they start hanging out, and Cece starts falling for him, and she's bi, but the problem is he's not online and he doesn't know that she actually has a big presence online, and she wants to keep it that way, but her secret starts to catch up with her and she has to decide if she can tell him. So I really liked this book. I thought it portrayed social media well, and it also showed the effect of having a big presence on your mental health well. And I also liked how it discussed biphobia and bi erasure, and also the characters were well developed and the romance felt believable, and I thought this was well written, and overall I really enjoyed this book. So the next book I read in February was The Black Flamingo, and this is about Michael, and he is a biracial gay teen in the UK, and this book is written in verse, and it follows him from his childhood up until university, and I thought this was very well written. I thought that the verse that the author used to write the story worked very well for him, and I also enjoyed the characters. I thought they were well developed, so overall I really enjoyed this book. So the next book that I read in February was Punching the Air, and this is about Amal, who is wrongfully convicted of a crime that he didn't commit, and he gets sent to prison, and it follows him in prison. And I thought that this was well written. However, it was very character driven and there wasn't much plot to this book. And I also thought that this book ended abruptly. However, overall, I did enjoy it. So that's it for the books that I read in February. And now I'm going to talk about the books I read in March. So the first book that I read in March was Homebody. And this is a collection of poems. And I really enjoyed this poetry collection. I thought it was well written. I thought that it was thought-provoking, and I thought that it was full of emotional depth. And I also enjoyed how the author incorporated drawings, and I thought that those drawings went well with the poems. The next book that I read in March was Becoming RBG, and this is a graphic memoir about Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it follows her from her childhood up to adulthood and then through her law school journey and then becoming a Supreme Court justice. And I really enjoyed this. I thought it was very informative and I thought it was inspirational. However, I do think that the art style could have been a bit better. The next book that I read in March was The Girls Ive Been, and this follows Nora, who was the daughter of a con artist, and she escaped her 5 years ago, and she's been playing at normal. However, she has to dust those skills off because now she has 3 problems. So the first one is that her ex Wes walked in on her kissing Iris. The second problem is that they're all friends, but Wes didn't know about her and Iris. And then the third problem is that as soon as they enter a bank, some guys start robbing it. So I really enjoyed this. I liked how the author used dual timelines to explore childhood abuse and childhood trauma and their effect on Nora. I also thought that this book was full of action and that it was fast-paced, and I also liked the characters. I thought they were well developed, and I thought this book was very well written, and I also enjoyed that this book used the found family trope. The next book that I read in March was After the Fall, and I really loved this. I thought it was a great children's picture book. I thought that it was beautifully illustrated, and I also enjoyed the fact that this book tells an important message about overcoming fears. The next book that I read in March was Delicate, and this is the sequel to Sheets, and it follows Marge, and she's finally becoming popular in her school, and she wants to keep Wendell, who's a ghost, a secret. And then there's also another girl named Eliza who is really interested in finding ghosts and taking photos of ghosts, but she feels invisible and she feels like an outcast. So Marge has to decide between keeping Wendell a secret and between what's right and wrong. And I really enjoyed this graphic novel. I thought it was well illustrated, and I also liked the messages about friendship and mental health in this book, and I thought it was overall a great graphic novel. And the last book that I read in March was One Day We'll All Be Dead and None of This Will Matter. So this is a collection of essays, and it's about the author growing up in Canada as an Indian woman, and it follows her from childhood to adulthood. So I really enjoyed that book. I thought it was well narrated and I thought it was funny. So overall, I really enjoyed that collection of essays. So that's it for this video. Those are all the books I read in January, February, and March. Let me know what books you read during those 3 months. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you in another video soon.